Welcome, everybody. My name is Andrew Patricio, and I've been running my own business over 30 years now, but I've been educating and training business owners for the last 20 years. And I found some of the most successful business owners that I've worked with over the last 20 years are people that are really good at getting publicity for their businesses. So what I'm going to share with you today is some tips on how to get free publicity for your small business. And I'm also going to show you examples of how other business owners just like you have got some free publicity for their business. So a couple of great examples that I'm really excited to show you on how people have got publicity and it's helped them grow their business. So let's look at some of the examples. First of all, let's look at the benefits of publicity. You know, some of these are really quite obvious, but I think it's really, really key that you understand that one of the key benefits of getting free publicity for your business is the increased sales. Remember that every single bit of marketing, and I believe publicity falls into that category for small business, is we want to make sure that it increases our revenue in our business. That's ultimately why you get free publicity. The second one is for credibility purposes. You will see very, very quickly, if any of you've got publicity in your business, you'll realize very, very quickly the power of getting free publicity, because people start assuming that you really know what you're doing once you start getting into the media regularly. The third thing is it's great because it's free or nearly free. And when I say nearly free, for some of us, we're going to pay somebody to write for us, and that's the reason I say that it's nearly free. We can establish ourselves as an authority, which is really, really key, is that you've got to understand the power of this, is that when people trust you, they will buy your products or services. And this is something we've got to understand as business owners. One of the key functions of our marketing is for people to trust us. One of the key objectives of publicity is for people to trust us. And the other reason is it gets us more traffic to our website. So a whole lot of really positive reasons of why you and I should be trying to get publicity. But let me focus on a couple of really key things, examples of people that are doing a superb job. And some of you might know this company, 1-800-GOT-JUNK. They're the biggest garbage removal company in the world. And I really like this comment by Brian, where he says, free press is the greatest marketing tool available to any business. Positive media coverage of your company can be extremely widespread and very powerful because it's third-party endorsement. And I think this is really the key, is you and I need to understand as small business owners, is when somebody writes about you, this is third-party endorsement. And one of the things that really comes to mind when I say that is, think of any of our businesses nowadays. Think of the importance of having third-party endorsement. For any of you that ask your customers regularly for reviews and testimonials, think of the power of that to get you more business. And I think publicity has exactly that same power. The key advantage of publicity is that it's even better than a testimonial. It's even better than a review, because somebody like the local newspaper or the local magazine or the local blog has said that you really know what you're doing. And you've got to understand the value of that. And it's really key. So think of it as a way of getting third-party endorsement and building up credibility for your business. Here's another one of my favorite examples. I don't know if any of you have ever got the opportunity to read Richard Branson's book, or books. He's written a bunch of books. He's just published a new book that I ordered this week. But he's one of my favorite business owners. And the reason is, I think he's just so creative. I think he's just so innovative. And he just seems to be such a cool guy. And I encourage you, if you don't follow him online, I encourage you to do that, because his social media is absolutely brilliant. And if you can copy some of the things that he's doing, it's really brilliant. But, you know, here's a comment by Richard Branson where it says, you know, a good PR story is infinitely more effective than a full-page ad, and a damn sight cheap. And I agree with that. And if you look at some of these photographs, some of the things, or some of the crazy things that this guy's done to get his brand out there, and I'm not telling you you have to wear wings or put on makeup or carry actresses around, but it really helps. Sometimes making an idiot of yourself, making a fool of yourself, or just standing out is what works absolutely brilliantly for you. So think about it as a business owner. Is there an opportunity for me to position myself as an expert? Because the more people trust me, the more they'll buy my product or service. And it's really about growing that trust. So here's a great example of a business owner that's built a global brand just by getting PR, just by getting into the media, just by appearing regularly in radio and TV and other mediums like that. I always say to business owners is that the media needs us. And why does the media need us? Because we are great stories. A small business owner in a local community that is creating jobs, that is selling local products or services, that is, these are great stories. And I want you to understand this, is that there are massive opportunities for you to get great publicity. But there are a couple of things you need to do in advance. Really important things, in my opinion. Firstly, is you've got to position yourself as an expert. And you've got to understand this, is to position yourself as an expert, you've got to do a bunch of things. And all these things are going to benefit your business. The first one is write articles for local blogs, write articles for magazines, write articles for local newspapers, whatever it is. These are great opportunities for you to get your name out there. And more importantly, to position yourself as an expert. Because the media wants to speak to experts. They don't want to speak to people that know a little bit about a topic. They want to speak to an expert, somebody that really understands the industry. So the more you can share content online, the better it is for you and the better it is for your business. And I want you to understand the importance of this. Even from your website point of view, you've got to understand that the more links you're creating there, the more traffic you're bringing into your website. And those, especially from a local newspaper or a local magazine or a local chamber of commerce or a local government site or whatever, these are really good links. They are really, really good links. So if that's the only reason you get publicity for your business, I think it's a great reason. So write articles for blogs, comment regularly by writing to the media. Maybe that's an opportunity for you. I'm going to show you an example later on of a small business owner who did exactly that, and it created lots of opportunity for her. Another big opportunity is to participate at conferences. Find conferences for your industry and regularly attend these and speak at these conferences, because often what happens, there's media at these conferences, they will interview you, and it opens up a great opportunity for you to, again, position yourself as an expert, to build that trust for people to understand and know what you are doing. And finally, if you're that way inclined, or if you've got the ability, is write a book. And I say this to business owners often, especially if you're in a service type business. I think this really opens up an opportunity for you. I don't think writing a book is a good reason. I mean, a good thing. But I think writing a book to get publicity and to position yourself as an expert, I think is a very, very good reason to write a book. So if it's to position yourself as an expert and get publicity, I think writing a book is a wonderful thing. I don't think it's a great way to make money, but I think it's a great way to position yourself as an expert. Here's a couple of examples. I worked with this small business owner. He attended one of my training programs. And I said to him, you know what, try and get publicity. The more publicity you can get, the better it is for you. And this guy's been very, very clever. What he did is he communicated with local blogs that write specifically about local food, about local coffee shops and things like that. That's the one thing he did. But the other thing that I thought that he did that was very, very clever is he regularly entered competitions. So the best cappuccino competition, the best espresso competition, those type of things, which I thought was very, very clever. And this guy's grown from a small one-person business. Now he's got 3 additional locations. He's even got a coffee roastery now. But these are some of the opportunities that open up when you get into the right medium. And in his case, it's about local blogs, it's about local media, and in his case, it's worked really, really well. So understand the value of that. It can really help you grow your business. The most important thing, I believe, is when you get approached by the media, is what's your story? I don't know if anybody watches the Shark Tank, but I find it a great show to watch. And there are a couple of reasons. One, they're very, very inspiring stories of business owners that are creative, that come up with these great ideas for business. But the most important thing is to listen to the stories of those sharks, of how they struggled. They started with next to nothing, and now they've built these great businesses. And you've got to understand, you've got to make your story interesting, because the media is going to ask you. They're going to ask you about, how did you start your business? Why did you start your business? Where did you come up with the idea? What influenced you? All those type of things are really key. And what makes it special, unique? What makes it interesting? And the more interesting your story can be, the better it is. And understand the value of this. You know, I had a very good example recently, a small business owner that traveled around the world working and decided that they want to start their own tea business. And they tell a great story of them working in a coffee shop in Australia and then traveling to the India and to the that region to visit tea farms to choose their teas to make their product. And it's a wonderful story. And you've got to understand the power of telling a great story of how you found your product, what influenced your decision, all of those type of things. Actually, I was on a Shark Tank this week, and I heard one of these sharks saying to one of the business owners, is you've got a great story. Tell that story. People want to hear your story. People that buy your product, people that buy your service want to hear your story. And I encourage you to tell it. Tell them how you chose the products. Tell them how you came up with the idea. Tell them your story, and it's got to be interesting. Because I always believe this, 100%, that there are two ways to tell a story, an interesting way and a boring way. Make it interesting. So here's a great example. This is a small business owner that I know that she's a businesswoman that does art. And I think that is really the key. She's a businesswoman that paints and has done really, really well at it. But this story happened. I was sitting in my office one day, and the local newspaper phoned me up and said to me, Andrew, we're looking for a small business owner to interview. Do you know somebody? And I said, let me just think about it. Anyway, went down. I was sitting in my office, went down to the mailbox to get the mail. While I was there, I saw Claire. And I said to Claire, you know, the local newspaper contacted me. They're looking for somebody to interview. Are you interested? And she was interested. And I think that is the key thing, is that when the media calls, and they will call, you've got to be ready. You've got to be ready. You've got to be prepared. You've got to be prepared to tell your story. And her story is a great one. If you read this article, I'll read the first line for you. At the start of this year, frustrated, Claire Hall gave up her job as a North American saleswoman at a fashion designer to follow her passion. The media loves stories like that, of somebody that was working in a job, didn't like their job, decided to start her own business. And she's been in business now for 5 years. She survived out of selling art for 5 years. She's doing what she loves, and that's the key thing. But if you speak to Claire, she'll tell you that the first 3 years, a lot of her customers came from this article. So you've got to understand the power of getting in the local media. And the other thing she's used really, really well is, obviously she's in a very visual business. She's used Instagram and Facebook really, really well to get her name out there. Here's another great example. A young woman, Charlene, and she tells the story of her grandmother, you know, encouraging her as a young kid to do figure skating, and now she's created her own business. And you've got to understand that the media loves these. This article specifically was on a blog for figure skaters, very, very targeted. And you've got to understand that when I say get publicity, you may think, well, you know what, I want to get onto TV, I want to get onto radio, I want to get onto the main publications. but even the small publications are really good for you. So understand that. Don't give up on small publications. They are a great opportunity for you. So the key thing here is, if you want to get publicity, is you've got to have a news angle. You've got to understand that this is how newspapers make money, or this is how blogs make money. They make money by getting people to buy ads on their blogs or in their newspapers. So they're not waiting for your great story. But if it's newsworthy, if it's interesting, if it's unusual, if it's sensational, the media loves stories like that. So make sure that you come up with interesting stories that affect as many people as possible, as many of their readers as possible, which is really the key thing here. So understand that it must make interesting reading, viewing, or listening. It needs to be innovative, it needs to be creative, it needs to be beneficial, it needs to be funny, it needs to be extraordinary. All of these things are things the media is looking for. They're looking for different, they're looking for unique, they're looking for special. These are the type of things. And somebody asked me the other day, what about controversial? I said, that's good too. I said that's a great example of doing that. So let me show you another great story of two business owners that attended one of my training programs. They got a lot of publicity. So Brian and Joel came up with this game called Mouse Hunt, which I believe is a wonderful game. I don't play games, so I'm not the best person to say, you know, is it a great game or not? But they were very, very clever. When they first started their business, Brian tells this great story of going to sleep at night and during the night dreaming up this game called Mouse Hunt. And basically the concept is really, really simple, is that there's cheese, and the more expensive the cheese is, the more points you can get, which is really simple, nothing fancy. But Joel and Brian created this game in their team, and straight away this game took off. It was instantly successful. It's really interesting that after all these years, it is still up and running. I mean, this article was published in 2009, so we're talking about 8-9 years ago that this game was launched, maybe even 10 years now, that this game was launched, and it's still popular. But they also were very, very clever. What they did was, once this game started getting traction, they applied. At the time, Facebook was running a competition that if you had a great idea, they would give you a grant. They applied for this grant and won it. So this was absolutely brilliant for their business, and more importantly, it was newsworthy. They were in the local paper, they were in the Washington Post, and a bunch of magazines out there. So understand the value of having something that is different, having something that is unique. And I think the key thing about this article that I have on the screen now is the mice. You know, the mice or the mouse was really what people were interested in. But let me tell you something else interesting, is that there are people in this world that have tattooed some of these mouse hunt mice onto their body. This is what I always say to business owners. When somebody's tattooing your logo or one of your graphics onto their body, I think you've done a great job. Really, if they are so passionate about your product or service, I think you've done a great job. And I want you to understand the value of that, is that it's really about getting your name out there. It's really about getting the publicity. That's what you want to be doing. So there are great examples of small business owners just like you and me that have done this and done an absolutely brilliant job. Now let's think of some creative ways, you know, because the key thing is you want to find creative ways of getting publicity. So let's say, for example, you get a publicist, or you go to one of the local colleges and you find somebody that's doing a course on public relations and understands communication. You can sit down with them and say, these are some of the ideas I have. And really, it's about coming up with good ideas. So maybe sitting down and actually brainstorming some ideas that you can come up with. So things that you can do, for example, are a customer survey. You know, we've done this, and I'm going to show you an example later on. We've got a database of small business owners and asked them a bunch of simple questions. We took that information, created a media release, and sent it to the local media. And these are some of the opportunities for you. Another one is create top 10 lists. You know, the top 5 colors of 2018, the top 10 things you should do to grow your business in 2018, the top 3 best cars for the next 12 months. You know, all those type of things the media loves. The media loves it when you come up with simple lists, simple ideas, simple concepts that people can consume. And more importantly, they can share in their blog, or they can share in their newspaper or magazine or whatever it is. So these are some of the opportunities. The other one is you can develop an annual community award. You know, come up with an idea. Get the local media involved. Get the local schools involved. You know, get local businesses involved. These are some of the opportunities for you to come up with something that gives back to your community, but at the same time, and this is the key, is at the same time it gets you publicity for your business. So come up with ideas like that. You know, piggyback on a great story. You know, watch the media, watch the newspapers, watch TV, listen on radio, see what they're talking about. You know, share some of your knowledge, share some of your experience with them. It's amazing how you can share this experience, knowledge, share your stories, and the media will pick it up. Write a story about being some surprising facts in your industry. I'll give you a very good example. When I first started this business, it's going back a while now, 21 years. I just started this business, and it was really interesting because when I started this business, I spoke to a bunch of people that were working at local small business banks, and one woman specifically said to me, "Do you know what the failure rate of small business is?" I said, "No, not really." She said it's 80%. You know, and this was a really interesting comment because I've traveled a lot. I've worked in 22 different countries over the last 20 years. And I'm always amazed that every single country I go to, I ask people, what is the failure rate of small business? And a lot of them say 80%. Even if you read books, if any of you pick up small business books, they'll tell you about the high failure rate. And what I did is I wrote this article contesting that, saying, I don't believe that the failure rate of small business is so high. I didn't say what I thought it was, but it was a great example of getting into my local, I got into my local Chamber of Commerce, so it wasn't massive publicity, but it was to my target market. And that is the key thing. It's not about getting thousands of eyeballs, it's about getting the right eyeballs. And it was very, very good for my business. So when people say things, if you've got some interesting statistics or whatever, or you don't believe things, it's a very good idea to do that. You know, maybe be a little bit controversial is what I say to small business owners, because it's an opportunity to challenge the way people think, to share your knowledge, your experience, and your opinion, which I think is a great thing. Another great thing to tell is a rags to riches story about yourself. People love hearing these. Maybe get somebody else to write it, you know, for you, but it's a great opportunity. And I see this often when I watch Shark Tank, is hearing these people's stories of how they started and how they grew their businesses. And everybody loves those stories. So if you can tell a great story, people would like to read it, and they may buy your products or services just because of your story. Another one is sponsor a local community service project. For example, maybe you'll clean up in the city once a year. Maybe now's the perfect time of the year. You get a bunch of kids with plastic bags collecting garbage in your area, all these type of things. Phone up the local media and tell them a couple of stories. These are some of the opportunities. I think a great opportunity for some small business owners, especially in smaller communities. I think it opens up so many opportunities. The other one is disprove a well-known myth. You know, people have these myths about different things. You know, I was thinking about it recently, actually. On Sunday, I was watching a bit of TV, and they were speaking about coconut juice or coconut milk. How it's people have this perception that it's very good for you, and all that type of stuff. You know, it's really interesting when you can go against the grain, when you can disprove something, when you can, but obviously you've got to have facts. Don't just disprove something with anecdotal information. But this opens up a lot of opportunities for you. Maybe write a story about being the first. You know, that coffee shop I spoke about, or I showed you on the screen earlier on, he did that. He brought in a special machine. It was the first in the city and used that to get some publicity. And then the other thing is do some interesting research and publish the findings. So all of these things are great opportunities for you as a business owner to really grow your business. Here's an example, actually, in the Washington Post. This is a small business owner that I know really well. I've done a bunch of webinars for him. He's an accountant. You got to understand, getting publicity for accountants must be difficult. And here he speaks about cybersecurity, a topic that is everybody's thinking about, especially over the last couple of years. And he's sharing his knowledge, sharing his expertise. These are some of the opportunities for you, is to educate other people. Now, how do we write media releases? So I'm going to encourage you, ideally, you want to get a communications expert in your area. That's what ideally you're going to do. But some of you cannot afford this communications expert, this person that really understands how media works. So your option's going to be is to find somebody out there that can write it for you. And I encourage you to go looking for these people. I know I've used a bunch of university students over the years and got some brilliant results. So it's really about understanding your industry, understanding what your target market wants to read, and then getting your writer to really get that across. When you write media releases, obviously if you're getting somebody that knows, you don't have to go through this exercise, but some of you may decide to do it yourself, and that's okay. So here are some tips for you. When you create a media release, at the top you write for a media release or on the specific date that you want to distribute it. Let's say, for example, you want to write the media release now, but you want it launched on the 31st of October, say. So these are some of the opportunities that you put a specific date, but usually the media will publish it when it suits them, not when it suits you. But again, there are some options. I've heard of a bunch of small business owners that have done this. People that have launched campaigns on Kickstarter or Indiegogo have been very, very successful at this. At the top of your release, include your name, your phone number, your email address, your website address. So make it very, very easy for them to communicate with you. The one lesson we've learned in BizLaunch over the years that have been very, very effective is always keep media releases shorter than 1 page. So that's always been our BizLaunch rule. Actually, we came up with a number, 500 words or less. So that is the number that worked for us. I'm not going to say it's going to work for you, but I'm telling you, in the case of BizLaunch, it worked really, really well. So keep your media release to 1 page or less. Write it like a journalist would write it, which is really, really key. It's got to be journalism. It mustn't be just about you. It's got to be of interest to the readers. So it's got to be about journalists. And then develop a short headline. I actually think the headline is the most important part. The most important part of a media release is the headline. So remember this. You've got to come up with a punchy, interesting headline. So, for example, 5 ways to avoid investment mistakes, or 10 things you should know before buying a home, or 6 things you should ask your contractor, or the top 10 cities for small business. Think about the things that your audience would read. I would even encourage you to go and find articles that your customers really like reading. Keep copies of that so that when you go to a expert, you've got that information available. But let me tell you one of my favorite stories. This was a young business owner that came up with an interesting product and launched it on Kickstarter. Not Kickstarter, Indiegogo, same thing. One of those sharing sites where people will buy before you manufacture the product. Anyway, so he launched his first Indiegogo campaign, was an absolute failure. Went on to a show like Dragon's Den or Shark Tank, and it was an absolute disaster. and was really, really a bit stressed about this whole thing. I then tried one more time, and this is what he told me he did. Whether you believe him or not doesn't matter. But he went on to Fiverr, and some of you maybe know about Fiverr. Some of you maybe have read about Fiverr. Maybe some of you've even used Fiverr. I'm not telling you that I used this, but I'm telling you that this is what this guy said he used. Anyway, he went on to Fiverr, found a bunch of people, and you'll see, they'll say, I will write an awesome press release for you. I will check or distribute your press release. And this guy at the bottom here says, I will write a prolific press release for you. So there are people out there that you can find online. Obviously, you've got to check them out and make sure you do your due diligence. But there are people online that can write this for you. So I think in 2017, there's no excuse for us. There are people that you and I can afford that can write this for us. And that's the key, is be prepared. Go and find the right experts out there to help you, and it could be a wonderful thing. So once you've decided on your headline, once you've found the right person, this is what I'd encourage you to do. Is the first paragraph of any media release, of any article, has to explain the whole article. And the reason is that if I send my local, say I've written this article to the local media, what they'll do is they'll only fit it if they've got space. And if they don't have enough space, they'll cut the article from the bottom. So this has always been our guideline, is we come up with a really interesting introduction, and then we have 3 or 4 interesting paragraphs that explain in more detail. And then in that article, you can include quotes. You can include quotes that you have said according to small business expert Andrew Patricio, and then you can make comments. So these are some of the opportunities for you, and wonderful opportunity to get publicity. So here's a very, very interesting article, and one that you and I would read. And I encourage you actually to check this out, the Huffington Post. I think they do a great job. I really believe they do a great job of coming up with great headings. And this article you would read, 8 things entrepreneurs do differently to average people. And again, these are the type of things you want to be writing. So if you are an accountant, or if you're a consultant or a coach and you're targeting business owners, this would be the type of article you would write to your local magazine, to your local newspaper, to your local chamber of commerce, to a local blog that business owners read, and you'd get the publicity. So I encourage you to collect articles that you enjoy, collect articles that your customers enjoy, so that when you go to somebody to write your press release, they've got this information. The one thing we've learned in BizLaunch over the years is that if you include statistics in your press release, the media loves it. So think about this. Is there an opportunity for you to find some stats that you can share in your article? So include some statistics. Always have a good, high-quality photograph. High definition, high-quality photograph that you can share with them. Photograph of you doing your thing, or selling your product, or consulting with a client, or whatever that thing is that you do, that's what you want to do. Check your spelling, check the dates, the details carefully, which is something I never do, and keep it simple. Write short sentences, no jargon. Again, keep it to the point, simple, easy to understand. Here's another example of a great section of the newspaper, and this Huffington Post is online, but maybe an opportunity for you to get some publicity in the Huffington Post. I know a bunch of business owners that have been on my training programs that have written articles for the Huffington Post and got in there quite easily. So it's not that difficult. If you're a good writer, or if you know somebody that's a good writer, it's a great opportunity. So check it out. It may be the winner for you. Okay? The most important thing, like any marketing, you've got to be very, very targeted. So start off by, let's say once you've written your press release or your media release, start off by identifying magazines, newspapers, TV, blogs, whatever it is that your customers want to read. And I think that is the key thing, is getting publicity in something that your customers don't read. Good for the ego, not good for the business. So just keep that in mind. So choose the media. And I encourage business owners, you don't have to listen to me, but I encourage business owners to start off with local media. And the other thing you can do, which is a really good strategy, is target journalists that write about your industry. So build up a relationship with them, connect with them, maybe network with them. These are some of the things you need to be doing. But again, you need to, in advance, make sure that you build these relationships so that you can get through to these people. Here's another great example. This is a small business owner that I know really well that makes collars for dogs, and she's done a great job over the years, really getting publicity for her business. And what she's done, which has been very, very clever, is used her dog, this dog here on the screen, Buddy, to get a publicity. And just a wonderful way to grow your business is, it's really creative. And I think that's the key thing, is to be really creative. She's been in videos, she's been on morning TV, all this type of stuff. And I think one of the main reasons is not that she has the most interesting business in the world, but she's always working with these great dogs and things like that, and people all love dogs. So there's a great example. The other thing you want to do is you want to build a database of contacts. So there are two opportunities here. Either go to somebody that already has a database of contacts, somebody that's in the industry, or start doing it yourself. And where do you find these people? And really, it's not that difficult. If you go to newspaper websites, on their websites, they'll often have media contacts. They'll have the name and email of people you can contact. So make sure that you do that. Collect the names of editors, reporters, columnists. Start building up relationships with these people. Maybe try and go to events where they will be and network with them. If you're trying to get into TV and radio, collect the numbers of news desks and program directors. So really, you've got to make sure you do that. And I think especially nowadays, you've got to make sure that your list is up to date, because a lot of these people move around. They go from one blog to the other, or they go from one newspaper to the other. So you really need to understand, are these people still in that position that you assume they are? But here's a couple of really simple examples. I found these online, and some of you maybe know about Harrow. I've known about Harrow. I haven't really used it, but know about Harrow. And Harrow stands for Help a Reporter Out. And you can go to these websites, you can sign up, and then journalists will approach you. So if you've got an interesting story that they're writing about, they will approach you. And here's a great opportunity for a lot of you, is to communicate with these people. I mean, this example on the left-hand side here, all I did was I went onto Google and I searched for a list of online PR tools, and I found this. So understand that this information is available. You have access to it. You need to look for it. That's really what you need to be doing. Here's a great little example. These were two young women that were on one of my training programs, and what they do is they do Airbnb. So let's say you've got a home and you want to Airbnb this. They'll come in, they'll help you set it up, they'll help you buy the furniture, they'll even let it out for you. So what they did is, in the local newspaper in the north of the city, somebody had rented an Airbnb place and trashed it. So they contacted the journalist, Vanessa, and said, hi, this is our business, this is what we do, and that typically doesn't happen. So can we tell you our story, or tell you, something about this industry? Anyway, so Vanessa contacted Monica and Lisa and then interviewed them. But you got to understand, and I say this to business owners regularly, is that once you get into the media once, you'll get into the media again. So these young women were in this article, and then a local TV station contacted them, and then a major TV station contacted them, and it just created this snowball effect. And you've got to understand the power of this, is that to get into the local newspapers would have cost them thousands of dollars. It cost them zero. Why? Because they got this article into the paper. And you can imagine the traffic this grows for your business. So understand the value of that. Now, once you've sent your media release through, use the telephone to follow up. Ask the journalist or the producer if the media release is received and if they've got any interest in it. So that's the first thing. Ask if they would like you to clarify anything. So make sure you do that. Ask if they require you to take a photograph or if they're going to send somebody to take a photograph, and encourage them to contact you for anything. And I think this is a big, big opportunity, is build up relationships with the local media. Because if you're a nice guy that follow us up and things like that, they may try and get you some publicity. But if you're not, you know what, they're not going to waste their time. Here's another interesting example. Remember I gave you the idea of using powerful headings. This is in one of the business newspapers that we got into, 10 reasons to include webinars in your marketing strategy. Again, great heading, interesting to a lot of readers, especially involved in marketing, and a lot of opportunity. So any one of you can do it. If we can do it, you can do it. And this article, more interestingly enough, was written by somebody that I just employed a few months ago. She was at university doing a marketing degree, a great writer, and I said to her we'd be able to get publicity. If the media says to you they want to follow up and ask you a bunch of questions, make sure you're well prepared. Have some statistics if you can. It works wonderful. Always use examples that people can relate to. So this is really key. Set a time when you won't be disturbed, because typically they'll do it over the phone. Keep your answers short and sweet and to the point, and relax and be yourself. And I think this is really a key thing, is you've got to understand that the more prepared you are, the better it is. Yes, another great article that we got a bunch of publicity for. At the time, a lot of people were talking about speaking remotely. We did some research in our database and came up with this number that 88% of small businesses in North America believe working remotely improves the quality of life. And again, great for our business, and we got a bunch of publicity for that. When you get interviewed, there are a couple of really important things. Number one, and the really key thing that you got to understand, nothing is off the record. I remember the first time I was interviewed when I started BizLaunch 13 or 14 years ago, is somebody, I said to the journalist, this is off the record, but never say this is off the record, but, because that's what they use as the headline, just so you understand. So that's the first thing. And secondly, don't say bad things about your competitors. Just speak about your business, your expertise, your knowledge. That is the key thing. I believe this, that reporters are well trained to ask right questions and ask the reporter what angle they want. You know, so think about the audience, think about what the angle is, think about that to make it as useful as possible. Because if it's an interesting article, if you're an interesting person to interview, they're going to come back. The other thing that I believe 100% in is building relationships with the media. So make friends with them. You know, get back to them as quickly as possible. Help them out when you can. And I promise you, if they like you, they'll regularly contact you. I've found this over the years, that some of the relationships we've developed have been absolutely brilliant. Now that we've discussed newspapers, magazines, blogs, all those type of things, let's discuss radio. I think radio is a massive opportunity. I also think another massive opportunity are blogs. If you can find a local radio station that is talking about a topic that you are interested in, that you have knowledge, I encourage you to contact them. This is the way we've always done it in BizLaunch. Is typically we'll send them a list of questions. Whenever I'm on radio, I always say to people, relax, speak slowly and clearly, especially if you've got an accent like me. Ensure that you're in a quiet place where you won't be disturbed. And if you get asked questions online, always repeat the questions. It gives you time to think. But another big opportunity are these online shows. I mean, all of you hopefully watched Shark Tank or The Profit or Dragon's Den. These are great opportunities for you to get publicity for your business. So think about that. That might be your thing. How do I get onto one of those shows? They say that as soon as you get onto one of these shows, your business just flies. And I've heard that a bunch of times. When it comes to TV, again, the same thing. Obviously, you're not always going to get the opportunity to send the interviewer questions, but we've always done that in BizLaunch, and it's worked wonderfully. So when you're being interviewed on TV, relax, speak slowly and clearly. Don't look at the camera, look at the person interviewing you, and dress appropriately. What does that mean? Just be careful of the stripes and checks that you wear on TV that are very difficult to see. But again, you know what, local radio, local TV, you know, these are some of the opportunities that you can create some really good content. And the most important thing is you can repurpose that. And I think that's the key thing, is you can then take this information, you can share it on your blog, you can share it on your Facebook page, you can share it on your Twitter, on your LinkedIn, all these things. So once you've got the publicity, put on your website, include a link on your blog, share it with clients, but most importantly, tell your mother. I really think she's going to be very proud of you. So let me just summarize quickly. I encourage all of you to think about this. Maybe this is an opportunity for you to come up with a couple of ideas of articles you can write, of information that you can produce that the local media is interested in. If you're not a good writer, find somebody locally in your community. Get them to write press releases and send them out regularly. It is a great way to grow your business. I encourage you to make getting free publicity part of your marketing plan. It is absolutely brilliant for your business. So let me just summarize. Come up with great stories. Make sure you find somebody that can get this publicity for you, or do it yourself. Do it regularly and don't give up. And some of you are going to do this, and it's going to help you build a great business. And that is my wish for every single one of you, that you use this information, that you build a great business, and you create hundreds of jobs in your community. That is my wish for every single one of you online.